My name is Ronnie Reese, and I was born and raised on the south side of Chicago. As the hub of the Black experience in Chicago, including the landing spot for the great migration of African Americans from the Deep South, the South Side has always been a place of musical opportunity and innovation. With its historic studio location at 2120 South Michigan Avenue, Chess Records brought the world Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley, the birth of rock and roll. But just down the street on Record Row was another significant South Side label. Founded in 1953, VJ Records would become the most successful Black-owned record label in the country, long before Berry Gordy's Motown would take over. VJ broke major Chicago soul groups like The Impressions, originally fronted by Jerry Butler and anchored by a young Curtis Mayfield. I'm on my way to visit Todd Mayfield, the son of Curtis and author of the recent biography Traveling Soul, The Life of Curtis Mayfield. In his book, Todd describes how the dire poverty of his father's youth left Curtis with a strong desire to control his own destiny.
He always wanted to own as much of himself as possible. And I think that came from my great-grandmother, the Reverend A.B. Mayfield, her being the owner of the Traveling Soul Spiritualist Church and pretty much a self-made woman who came up during the Great Northern Migration with nothing and established herself here in Chicago and established a great following with her spiritualist church. And I think with all the challenges that his family had in terms of food and money and just basic essentials, he looked at her as a successful model for him to emulate.
Mayfield created his first music publishing company when he was just 18, saying that publishers were hitting the lottery off of other people's material.
He saw a lot of other artists and writers sign publishing deals for very small sums of money, and these songs ended up being hit records, and they just wouldn't get their just due. So he was very sensitive about that and very stubborn about that, but that's what ended up being very lucrative for him over his life.
After writing hits for The Impressions, Jerry Butler, Gene Chandler, and Major Lance, Curtis would start his own labels, Windy C and Mayfield Records. In 1966, he signed the Five Stairsteps after they won a contest at the South Side's Regal Theater.
He very much admired Sam Cooke and Ray Charles, who had their own labels, their own imprints, and he felt like he wanted to emulate that and to have his own business with all his creativity and his business mind. He wanted to own as much of that as he could.
Why were the labels short-lived? I mean, we know he had the ambition, but why weren't they the successes that he might have wanted them to be?
It was his first time trying it. He's still very young. He's in a group. He was financing it all himself. And he signed to another label that he had responsibilities for as well. Those stumbles on the Windy C label and Mayfield label allowed him to start Curtom and have success. He wanted to own his masters, he wanted to own his publishing, and he also wanted to be a vehicle for other artists to record and produce for him.
Curtom's real legacy would be Mayfield's own music. As the decade of political turmoil, assassinations, and war came to a close, Curtis's songwriting would grow more confident and his lyrics more pointed. Did the recording under his own label give him a sense of freedom as well?
I think so, because you don't have to answer to anyone. You can't be censored, and you can do what you feel if it's your label. And I don't think my dad wrote songs with being commercial in mind. He just wrote how he felt. He'll let the audience accept it or not based on what it was. But he didn't look to necessarily write pop songs or anything like that. He just did his thing and did what he felt.
Mayfield's iconic soundtrack to Gordon Parks Jr.'s 1972 film Superfly was by far the label's biggest hit.
He was just super excited about it and read the script very quickly and already started putting in mental notes about the things he wanted to write about, characters that he identified with. It ended up going platinum, but this was the gold one that they received first. Yeah, it ended up going platinum, which is big in 1972.
Oh, yeah,
73.
absolutely, yeah. And for a black artist, not on Motown to be selling that many records.
Yeah, on his own label.
Mayfield's follow-up solo records didn't have the same impact in the changing musical landscape. How did your father, deal with the wave of disco and changing his music to like a sound for a younger generation, a more club-oriented generation?
Right. He relented control over producing some of these songs, but he was just doing what he needed to do to appease the labels, to just trying to change with the market, but it wasn't him.
On the strength of his 1979 disco album, Heartbeat, Curtom's distribution rights were picked up by RSO Records, which had made a windfall on the disco craze. But RSO soon folded, bringing Curtom down with it. What would have been the best case scenario for Curtom, you think, if he could have done it all over again?
Somehow cultivating more production talent. He didn't necessarily have a stable like Motown was able to develop. In the long run, that hurt because you can only do so much one person.
But Mayfield's career didn't stop there. And in fact, his final album, 1996's New World Order, cemented his legacy as a legend who continued to influence the younger generation.
At the time, he was a quadriplegic. He had a catastrophic accident that broke his third, fourth, and fifth vertebrae. With that, you have no control over your diaphragm or anything else underneath your chest right here. So it was very challenging for him to record that. But he was very determined. I mean, the way he had to sing things line by line, almost like word by word sometimes in a reclined position in a wheelchair. So that was gutsy, and he pulled it off. I mean, he collaborated again with some really good producers, Organized Noise at that time, who was big out of Atlanta. It was a good situation.
I'm headed deeper into the South Side, near the old Curtom Records studio, to meet up with Ron Trent, a legend in the Chicago house scene. Like Curtis, Ron started out at a young age, first DJing high school parties and then clubs, and soon making his own mark helping to reinvent dance music, which would lead to a long career in music production as a label owner. Talk to me a little bit about your first musical experience.
If you want to get real, ethereal about it, I guess I was listening to music in the womb. My mother used to play black jazz, the record label, Black Jazz, Doug and Gene Carn and that kind of stuff. After that, man, it was just constantly around me. My father was a record collector, my mother was a record collector, my father was a musician. Music was a very important part of helping me be able to get through daily life. Music has always been that thing that keeps us grounded. So it was just kind of like a thing that was a part of my upbringing, in my house.
When did you start playing instruments yourself?
My first instrument was conga drums. There's pictures of my father put my hands on the drum kind of thing and just kind of doing like that and playing to songs, because that's how we learned. They say we didn't have to go to no music class or anything like that. We just kind of mimicked what we heard on records.
What came first for you, the record collecting or the DJ?
Record collecting. Yeah. Absolutely.
Do you remember the first one you purchased?
The first record I actually purchased with my own money was Pyro Gyra and Herb Alpert. I was a big Herb Alpert fan. I still am. The Beyond album was one of the albums that I purchased on my own. It was a record store here called Metro Music. It was one right up the street from the house. My father and I, we would go in there every week.
What was the scene like at the time when you first started DJing?
At this time, house music itself had kind of exploded into the European scene around like 87. You got this underground thing that's happening that's come out of this gay culture that as a heterosexual kid, you might not necessarily have been exposed to. This had been already going on. Shit, by that time, 10 years, it had already been 10 years. Because we're talking about something that started around 76, 77 in terms of like, the warehouse being open, that kind of thing. It's a whole decade didn't happen before it's even going to Europe and it's being called house music. While that's happening, Frankie Knuckles was being canvassed by Robert Williams to come play at the warehouse. So there had been a whole scene going on. But what was starting to happen is it was starting to get into the heterosexual community. And it wasn't necessarily a lot of heterosexuals. Right. You know what I mean? It was mainly a gay thing and very eccentric. It was like the black punk scene. If you were into this lifestyle, you were into your own individualistic perspective. You kind of had a sense of who you were and what you wanted to be, and at least enough to be able to experiment. Back at that time, you had the Power Plant that was open, which was Frankie Knuckles Club, and then the Music Box, which was Robert Williams and Ron Hardy. Then outside of that, you had like high school parties going on, which was like an intermediate way to introduce youth culture to house music.
What made you decide is to go from, playing records to like putting out your own records?
See, as a DJ, one of the things that would make you stand out was having stuff that nobody else had. Back in that time, you wanted to have the stuff that Ronnie and Frankie were playing because they were the top guys, you know, and they had stuff that you just couldn't get a hold of. So sometimes, you know, guys would then emulate that on drum machines and keyboards and remake some of the stuff that they heard Ronnie and Frankie playing here in Chicago, or records that they liked but maybe couldn't afford it. So that's where that culture of making tracks came, because that's what Chicago did, remade disco records, but on a track level. I was just always interested in making my own stuff. So I would make tracks, you know, play in my sets, stuff that nobody else had. So it was like the first poor man's format of being able to play unreleased material. It was a really organic kind of thing. We were expressing ourselves from the best way we could as young urban cats telling our little story.
One of the first tracks Ron produced for his DJ sets, Altered States, had an immediate effect on the crowd.
There was 3 tracks that I really liked that I did at that time. One was called Making Love, the other one was Afterlife, and the other was Altered States. Altered States seemed to have like this effect on people. Yeah, original classic. Cost me a lot of money. I'm not gonna even say it was my favorite. Thought it was cool, but it wasn't even my favorite, you know? But people, oh my God, yeah, you know, because it was different. It did something different. It was the change in it, the way it dropped down with the drums and that kind of thing. And it was more of an esoteric record. New Wave was big with us. I'm mentioning this because, you know, Altered States had that tinge in it, had like the ethereal strings in it. One artist that I will say was a big inspiration for a lot of us in this scene was Jamie Principle. Mainly because Jamie was like this alternative artist, new wave artist, but on the house music scene.
Soon, Ron was approached by DJ, producer, and Warehouse Records owner Armando Gallup, who wanted to release the song on vinyl.
My mother had to sign that contract. I was like 17, 18 years old. And we had a lawyer look it over and everything, you know what I'm saying? Put the record out and the shit fucking blew up. Like more than I ever expected. You know what I'm saying? This man right here. Him, Dave Morales, I owe them a lot. They really got behind Altered States. And so that then opened me up to the whole European market, which then boom, boom, boom.
Ron would eventually start the deep house label Prescription Records in 1993 with business partner Shay Damier, who had been working for Detroit producer Kevin Saunderson's KMS Records.
We had started doing production together, and we felt in order to tell our story the way that we wanted to and get the music and the philosophy out there, we needed to create our own label.
And how Chicago's rich musical heritage impacted future generations.
You have the likes of Sam Cooke, which is the king of R&B, you know, which then comes out of gospel. And of course, jazz. All these things had like major roots here in Chicago. I mean, this was a major hub and city for all this different types of music. Much respect to Curtis Mayfield. What he did is open the doors for what we're doing today on a certain level. The idea of creating it, owning it, presenting it, that's kind of a Chicago spirit. Somebody like Curtis Mayfield, you know, was able to take what he was doing to the next level. Because even Chess Records wasn't a, you know, African-American owned enterprise. This is a soulful city. This is an R&B city. The core essence of house music. It's real soulful, urban sound. Very raw, rootsy kind of thing. That's kind of like our take on it. This is a soul city.
Sitting here with Zernell Gillie, co-founder of Crate Diggers. First thing I want to tell you is thank you for doing this for the culture. It means a lot to us diggers, DJs, producers. What was your inspiration for kind of putting this all together?
I wanted to do an event and wanted to see if Discogs wanted to be involved with the event. And I met Liz, she's the community outreach manager for Discogs. She ran it up the flagpole and they loved the concept and Prey Diggers was born.
What's the importance of having like fairs like this you can come out and dig?
Record collecting and even like music, I mean, it brings people together. It's a thing of like, you know, getting the community together and engaging with the music. You know what I'm saying? Not just maybe not to dance, but just to be a part. That energy that happens when people get together in the record stores and talk about music and sharing that kind of thing. And that's kind of like what built, you know, the community, the social environment. When the digital thing came in, it's like you have a lot of people that hunt records down just because somebody else is playing it or somebody else that has it in a collection versus actually going off their own taste. And to be quite honest with you, as a collector and a DJ, that's where I'm at. Like when I'm going out and shopping, I'm going out to find things I've never heard before. I'm out here digging.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. You don't know, Ron Trent's in the cut. You know what I mean?
I'm out here digging, trying to find something.
Among the
you know
people.
What I mean?
Yes, yes, yes.
You know, you can't sit behind your computer thinking you can just get all the jams.
Right, right. And that's inspiration enough in itself, man.
You know?
Thank you, brother.
My man.
Appreciate it.
Respect.
When I stole my records from my parents, I found this one was in there, and they had like 5 fucking Rudy Ray Moore records. Answered a lot of questions for me. Sure.